while we're waiting for the rest of folks to join. So our poll that's launching now essentially is asking, are you ready for student loan payments to resume in September? This is the big question of the day. All right. Well, it looks like we got a number of responses. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll right now. So the majority of folks essentially said that they were not ready for repayments to begin again in September. 66% of the folks who responded stated that. That's not surprising. There's a lot of confusion going around right now with return to repayment and with what's happening in September and October related to student loans. So we hope that today we'll be able to get you in a position where you feel more ready for payments to begin again in September. And I'm going to go ahead and share the results of the poll so folks can see that. And then I will get started here. All right. So thank you to the AARP Foundation for hosting us. We are excited to be here. My name is Anna Anderson, and I'm a staff attorney from the National Consumer Law Center, where I work on our Student Loan Borrower Assistance Project. And with me today, I have my wonderful colleague, Kira Taylor, who's also a staff attorney at NCLC. We are going to present a bit about returning to repayment in September and what you need to know to get ready. And then we will turn it over to Lindsay from Savvy, who will talk a bit more about the services that Savvy offers to everyone on the call. So with that, let's just go ahead and jump right in. All right, so today we're going to talk about understanding your specific loan situation, and that's going to be really important as you work through your plan for what's going to happen in September and October. Then obviously we're going to talk about returning to repayment before also addressing loan cancellation, forgiveness, and some other relief that's currently available to borrowers right now. So the big question is, like, why are we talking about this? I mean, unless you've been under a rock, I mean, obviously there's been a lot of things happening in the student loan world in the last few months and weeks. And there's just a lot going on. We know that the Supreme Court decision on President Biden's cancellation plan that came out in June impacted millions of borrowers. And the law that Congress passed in June as well to return everyone to repayments on student loan in September is also impacting many folks who are getting ready and just curious about how this is all actually going to shake out. So we are going to go over a lot of this today, but first, before we do that, I think we need to address the elephant in the room, which is the cancellation decision. So what happened at the Supreme Court? Well, the Supreme Court essentially struck down President Biden's original plan to provide up to $20,000 in student loan cancellation for millions of Americans. The president has said that he is now going to be working on a second plan to try to provide relief to Americans who are struggling with student loan debt. But in order to accomplish this new plan, the president has to engage with a process called a negotiated rulemaking. And this is a process where the Department of Education gets input from the public, including borrowers and advocates, to come up with essentially a new plan on cancellation. Now, this process could take months, if not longer. And we really don't know what the cancellation plan is going to look like at the end of it. It could be very different from President Biden's original cancellation plan, or it could be something that's pretty similar. Unfortunately, it's just too early to tell, and borrowers are going to be stuck with this uncertainty for the next several months, and will not have a clear idea of what's going to happen with the Plan B on cancellation before repayments begin again. So, the good news is that there is a plan B that is in the works, and something is hopefully going to come out of that. And additionally, there are other options to get relief right now that the Supreme Court did not strike down. So we're going to talk about those other cancellation and relief options that are out there, and hope that folks are going to take advantage of those in the next few months. All right. So, beyond the Supreme Court decision, we really have to talk about the payment pause ending. So Congress passed a law that ends the payment pause on September 1st of this year. Now, a lot of people have been asking us, well, what about all the extensions? Because the payment pause has been extended multiple times over the last few years. But unfortunately, because of this law that was passed by Congress, that means that this is truly the end of the payment pause, and repayments are going to begin again in September. So before folks really just take away that this is the end of the world here and we don't know what's going to happen, we are really going to go over everything that you need to know about your own loan situation so that you can feel as prepared as possible for repayment starting again. And now I think I'm going to turn it over to Kira, who's going to talk to us a bit about what's happening and how you can understand your loan situation.
Thanks, Anna. What a wild couple of months between the Supreme Court decision and now being sure that repayment is going to start, that interest will begin accruing in September, and then payments are going to come due in October. So first things first, we work with a lot of borrowers who are very confused about their student loan situation. So we're going to start with the basics. So here are the things you really need to know about your student loans to figure out what your next steps are. The first is, what type of student loans do you have? The second is, what is the status of your loans? Are they currently in repayment? Are they in a forbearance? Are they in default? Who holds the loans? Because even with federal student loans, the federal government doesn't necessarily hold or own your loans. Who is your loan servicer? There are a number of different federal loan servicers that may be helping you with repayment, receiving your payments, etc. And then what are your student loan goals? Because your options will change based on your goals in terms of your student loan payments. Are you looking to pay off your debt? Are you looking to cancel your debt? Are you looking to lower your monthly payments? So having clarity around what you want is really important. So let's start with the basics. What kind of student loans do I have? There are two types of student loans just on the biggest, most macro level. There are both private and federal loans. And what you see here is that the overwhelming majority of student loans are federal loans. It's about 1.5 trillion. There's a much smaller share of private loans. And that's part of why today we're going to be focusing on your federal loan options. Now, there are multiple types of federal loans, and we're going to walk through that together. But sometimes it can feel like you're sitting at the table for a board game where you don't totally know all the rules as you're trying to figure out what loan type you have and what your options are. And so we're hoping that today you will feel prepared to engage with your student loans, and it won't feel like a mystery anymore. So let's start with the types of federal student loans. The most common types of federal student loans are direct loans that are currently issued, Perkins loans, and federal family education loans, or FFEL loans. Perkins loans stopped being issued in 2018, and FFEL loans stopped being issued in 2020. And so if you took out loans more recently, 2018 or later, you have a direct loan. But if you took out loans earlier, you could have a Perkins loan or a FFEL loan. Now it gets a little more complicated than that, because there are other types of loans. There are Parent Plus loans that people take on to cover the cost of their child's post-secondary education, Graduate Plus loans for graduate school, Stafford loans that people take on for undergraduate, HEAL loans, and consolidation loans. And all of these types of loans can be either direct loans or FFEL loans. What matters is the time of when that loan was dispersed. If it was dispersed before 2010, it could be either a FFEL loan or a direct loan. And if it was dispersed before 2018 for your own undergraduate education, it could be a Perkins loan. The other question we get a lot from borrowers is, I have a subsidized loan. What does that mean? Direct or Fell Stafford loans for the borrower's undergraduate education can be either subsidized or unsubsidized. And what that means is that the government is covering some portion of the interest for a limited period of time. So the next really important thing to know is, what is the status of your student loans? You need to know, are your loans currently in repayment? Are they in a grace period if you recently left school? Are they in deferment or forbearance? Are they delinquent, meaning you haven't made a payment in a while, or are they in default? I'll flag, if they're in default, that is a big deal. You want to work to get them out of default if you can, because that can result in the government seizing a portion of your federal tax refund to pay off those student loans, or the government seizing a portion of your federal benefits like Social Security benefits. So who holds my loans? This is the next big question, because depending on who holds your loans or who owns your loans can also change what types of relief you might be eligible for as well. So the basics. All direct loans are held by the Department of Education. So if you have all direct loans, you don't need to worry. However, FFEL loans, federal family education loans, can be held either by the Department of Education or by a guarantee agency or a private lender. They're still federal loans. They're insured by the federal government, and they still have federal student loan rights. However, they can be held by someone other than the Department of Education. Perkins loans can be held either by the Department of Education or by a school. Again, the government is subsidizing these loans, but the school can still hold them. And so if you have a Perkins loan, you need to look into who the holder of your loan is. So that's a lot of information. And you might be asking yourself, man, but how do I figure out who holds my loans and if my loans are held by the federal government? And so we're going to walk through how you can figure that out. So one of my favorite websites, there are going to be two websites that we love today, and one of them is studentaid.gov. And the reason why I love studentaid.gov is because there's so much information about your own loan account and about your federal student loan rights. It's also, there's never a wait time when you log into studentaid.gov to look at your own account, unlike what you might find if you're calling your federal student loan servicer. So you're going to hear us talking about this website a lot. But when it comes to figuring out who holds your loans, we're going to walk through how you navigate your account on studentaid.gov together. So this is what the website looks like. As you can tell, there's a lot of information. There's a lot of links. But what you're going to do is you're going to log in, and you'll see it's at that top bar at the top of the website. And when you click log in, you'll see this. And you can create an account even if you've never logged in before. And you can use your email or phone that you used when you were creating your account, and then your password. I will tell you a secret. I forget my password every time. You can forget your password and reset it every time you log in, and that's okay. If you are confused, there's another button that at the very bottom that says help me log into my account that provides more information. And if you're stuck and you can't log in, there is a number that you can call that is listed in that website as well. Now, the department uses two-step verification to make sure that your account is secure. And so when you're logging in, or when you, like me, you're resetting your password, you'll have to get a code from the department that you'll then enter in to get clearance. SMS verification just means that you will get a text message to your cell phone with the code. You can also ask for email verification, and you'll see the last 4 digits of your cell phone number or the email that they're about to email the verification code to. Once you put that in, you're almost there. You've got this pop-up that comes up that essentially says, are you you? Debt relief companies have been trying to log in on people's behalf and then charge them for doing what is free to do on this website. And so now there are criminal penalties associated with doing that. So you are the only one who can log into your studentaid.gov account. And that's essentially what this is saying. So you'll say, I accept, because I am me. Next, you're going to see your student loan dashboard. And this is what it looks like. It's a summary of your federal student aid. And this is the top line summary. So we're not quite to your loan holder yet, so bear with me. And again, this is recorded. So if you're confused later, you can come back to this recording and walk through the steps as we go. You're going to click View Details because this is going to give you a more detailed review of each of your student loans. That's going to take you to the My Aid page. And when you're here, you're going to scroll all the way down to the loan breakdown. And then we're finally there, and you will know who holds your federal student loans. So this is what it'll look like. Many people have multiple loans that they've taken out for the same period of enrollment. And all of those loans will be listed under loan breakdown on the My Aid page. If the name of your loan servicer starts with the Department of Education or default management collection system, which means that that federal student loan is in default, then the loan is held by the federal government. However, if the name of the loan servicer starts with either a company's name or a school's name, then the loan is not held by the federal government. So here's an example of a private lender. It's just the name of a bank, and then you see the loan balance. That is a privately held loan. It's a privately held federal loan.
So who is your loan servicer? This is something that I think a lot of people often confuse loan holder and loan servicer. Well, while the loan holder is the company or the Department of Education, it's the owner of the loan. A loan servicer is the company that the loan holder hires to manage your student loans. Now, usually the loan servicer is a different company or agency than the loan holder. And the federal government, if the federal government is the holder of your loan, they use different companies to service federal student loans that it holds. And some of these companies also service private student loans and federal loans that are not held by the Department of Education. So this can be really confusing, which is why you really need to make sure you know who your loan holder is first, because knowing your loan servicer is not necessarily going to tell you if you have a Department of Education held loan or a loan that's held by another company. So once you know who your loan holder is, you can figure out who your loan servicer is next, also on studentaid.gov. And essentially the way you do this is you're going to go onto your dashboard. We have a list here of all the names of federal loan servicer that the Department of Education uses. Now, this list has changed. We have had a number of changes in the student loan servicing industry in the last few years, and even in the last few months. So you may have gotten notice that your loan servicer has changed since you were last in repayment. But these are the current companies that the Department of Education uses to service federal student loans. There are other loan servicers that exist that service student loans that are private student loans or federal student loans that are not held by the Department of Education. But if you only have Department of Education held loans, these are the loan servicers that you could potentially have that manage your loans currently. And like we said, you can figure this out on your dashboard on studentaid.gov. So when you're on studentaid.gov and you're on your My Aid section, on the right-hand side, Kira's got it flagged here in red for you. You have the information that shows your loan servicers. And if you click on View Servicer Details, that will take you to a page that looks like this. And you will be able to see your entire history of who has serviced your loans, which again may have changed, quite a bit over the period of time that you've had your student loans. I will say, for example, my own student loans, I've had like 10 different loan servicers. So it's changed quite a bit. And it's something that you want to make sure you pay attention to, especially going into repayment again, because it's very likely that your loan servicer is a different company and you'll need to set up a new account with that loan servicer and you'll need to interact with a new company going forward.
Okay, so hopefully now you've got the information to figure out what loan types you have, who the holder of your loans are, and who your student loan servicers are. So you're ready for the next step, which is, what are your student loan goals? Because like we talked about before, your goals will determine what steps you're going to want to take as you're preparing for repayment to restart. And you have a whole bunch of different options depending on what your goals are. So the goals that we commonly hear from borrowers are they want to pay off their loans. And so they might want to reduce the amount of interest that's accruing on their debt. They might need to get out of default. They may have realized that their tax refunds are getting seized. Wages can also be garnished by the federal government to pay off student loan debt. Or they may want to stop Social Security offset as well. The other thing to know about federal student loans is that there is no statute of limitations. So if you had it before, it may continue until those loans are fully paid off. Another goal is reducing monthly payments. We hear from borrowers all the time who are like, I am choosing between my rent and my student loan payment, but there are options to reduce how much you have to pay each month. And then last is, and this is a big goal that a lot of people don't realize, is that you can cancel your debt via various statutory discharges that exist in law. And we're going to touch on those briefly today, but there's a lot more information about both of those on studentaid.gov and on our other favorite website for today, studentloanborrowerassistance.org.
So preparing for repayment. These are things that I think everyone is here because they want to know how to take steps to prepare for repayment. Well, what does it actually mean when we say that repayment is beginning again on September 1st? So first of all, student loan interest is going to resume again on September 1st. So during the payment pause, the government paused interest and basically said that interest was not going to accrue on student loans during the 3-year pause. But that is now going to begin again on September 1st. And if your student loan payments were paused during the pandemic, your bill isn't going to be due September 1st. You're actually going to get your first bill at some point in September. Your first due date will be at some point in October, and that is going to be dependent on, your own situation and how your loan servicer establishes and determines your due date. So you really need to be looking out for information from your student loan servicer at some point in time in September to get your bill that's going to be due again in October. All right, so we have 7 tips that we want you to take to prepare for repayment. And the first one we've gone over quite a bit already, which is to get your own current loan information, to have a really good understanding of who your servicer is, who your loan holders are, what loan types you have, and what the status of your loans were before they were put into the pandemic payment pause. Next, we want you to update your contact information on studentaid.gov and with your loan servicer. And this is especially critical if your loan servicer has changed. Then we want you to check to see if you're eligible for any other cancellation or relief programs. Despite what the Supreme Court decided, there are other cancellation programs out there that are still valid that you may be eligible for today. And we want to make sure that you check your eligibility for that before September hits. Then we want you to make a plan for repayment. If you're not eligible for cancellation yet, you really need to look into what your repayment options are going to be, like maybe enrolling in an income-driven repayment plan, or seeing if a standard repayment plan is better for you and your goals. Then we want you to see if you are potentially eligible for and if consolidating your loans would be a good idea. This is something that would be super critical for people who have FFEL or Perkins loans, and we'll explain that a bit more in the next few slides. Finally, the last 2 steps we really want to make sure people are aware of is if you were in default before the pandemic, take advantage of a time-limited program called Fresh Start to get your loans out of default, which will have a number of benefits that we'll describe a bit further on. Finally, avoid scammers. This is something that we know that a lot of people are going to fall victim to scams in the next coming weeks because scammers are really sophisticated these days and they're taking advantage of all the confusion around the student loan system right now. So those are the basic tips that we want people to keep in mind. And now we're going to go over them a bit more in detail. So first, updating your contact information. So we've talked about going on to studentaid.gov. You can also update your contact information here. When you click on to your studentaid.gov account, you can click on and hover over your name, which is your little profile in your account, and you can go to settings, and there you can update your contact information. Now, studentaid.gov, that is the Department of Education's website. So this is telling the Department of Education what your current contact information is. and is super critical because the Department of Education will send you notices occasionally about new relief that's coming out, but also your loan servicer will need that information too, and the Department of Education will be sort of the last collection of all of that info. So make sure that your contact information is up to date on studentaid.gov. And you can click on contact information and to see if it's correct. And if it isn't, you can go ahead and edit it there. Now, you don't want to miss important information from either the Department of Education or your loan servicer. So remember, if you have had your loan servicer change, you will also need to update your contact information with your loan servicer. Now, you can contact your loan servicer over the phone, but all of the loan servicers have online sites where you can set up your own account separately from studentaid.gov to make sure that you're staying in contact with them that way. It is a lot easier to do one of these online accounts with the loan servicer than to wait on the phone for, hours at a time sometimes to give them this basic information. So if you don't have an account online with your loan servicer, or your loan servicer's changed, you want to make sure that you go and set those accounts up. If you have those accounts already, I would say log back on now if you haven't done so in a while. Make sure that your account information is up to date there as well, because your first bill from your loan servicer will come to you in September, and you want to make sure that you don't miss that, because if you miss that bill and you don't have notice of that, that is obviously going to be a problem if you then aren't able to make the payment in October.
And Anna, just before we move on, one thing that I think people don't realize is that you can have multiple federal student loan servicers, especially if you attended school at different periods of time, or if you have different types of loans. And so that's why it's really important to log into studentaid.gov and click for the additional details and get that full servicer outlay, so that you can log in and see what is going on there, or you can call the servicers. Although I will share that as we get closer to repayment restarting, folks should anticipate that the call center wait time will be much longer when they call their student loan servicers.
That is correct. Thanks for pointing that out, Kira.
So next, one of my favorite slides, because this is essentially a get out of jail free card for so many borrowers, and so few people know about all of the avenues to cancellation, is that there are a number of programs borrowers can apply to have their loans forgiven or canceled. Unfortunately, there's more details we'd love to share. We're not going to have enough time to walk through each cancellation or forgiveness program today, but I want you to at least know the name and the gist of each of these cancellation programs. And then we will also share where you can go to get more information about each of these. So you might be able to get your loans canceled now if you worked in public service for 10 years, such as teachers, government, and nonprofit workers, while you were paying off your debt. And that's called public service loan forgiveness. If you can't work because of a physical illness or mental condition, you might be eligible for a total and permanent disability discharge. That would cancel all of your debt as well. If you didn't complete your degree because your school closed, or if your school closed shortly after you withdrew, again, you can't complete your degree, then you might be eligible for a closed school discharge. If your school lied to you to get you to enroll or take out loans, then you might be eligible for a borrower defense discharge, which could also discharge all of your debt. In addition, if you've been paying on your loans for 20 or 25 years, you might be eligible for cancellation under one of the income-driven repayment plans. And we're going to talk about these a little bit more, because income-driven repayment can also reduce your monthly payments. And lastly, if your school falsely certified your eligibility to take out loans, you might be eligible for a false certification discharge. This comes up most often for folks who took out federal student loans even though they didn't have a GED or high school degree. So that gives you the overview of the different types of statutory discharges that are available to you as a borrower. Now, we have more information about these programs. There are more details to share. This was just an introduction to the different statutory discharge programs. You can get more information at our website, studentloanborrowerassistance.org. We have lots of details about all these cancellation plans. And also, our favorite website of the day, studentaid.gov, also has a lot of information about the various cancellation programs.
And just to jump in, some of these cancellation programs, such as the Total and Permanent Disability Discharge Program, it's a very simple application. And for the Total and Permanent Disability Discharge Program, all you need is a doctor to actually sign off and fill out your form. And then you can send it to Nelnet, which is the company that manages that program, to get your loans discharged. So some of these applications can be pretty simple and straightforward. So that's why it's important for you to look into those now. And those forms are all available online at studentaid.gov, and you can also find links to them on our site as well.
Thanks, Anna. Total and permanent disability discharge is really important to folks. If you are permanently disabled, then you can discharge your debt. And too few people realize that they can get their doctor to sign the form to be eligible for this form of discharge. Okay, so you now know your cancellation and forgiveness options. So moving on, let's talk about your plan for repayment. So you need to start planning now for the bill that's coming and is going to be due in October, so that you're prepared and you're not caught on your back foot. The first thing you can do is, if you don't have any recollection of what your student loan bill was before the payment pause started, you can contact your loan servicer for an estimate of what your bill is going to be. You can also ask them, am I enrolled in an IDR plan, or am I in standard repayment? If you're unsure, you can also ask, are my loans in default as well? If the amount is too high, you should consider enrolling in an income-driven repayment plan. There are multiple types of income-driven repayment plans. And what makes them so helpful is that they calculate your monthly bill based on a percentage of your income, not your total loan balance. And so for folks who are lower income, they may see that they have a $0 monthly payment. The terms of each of the loans and the percentage of your income that counts towards that monthly bill calculation varies by the plan. And there are multiple types of plan. And in addition, those plans vary based on what type of loan you had and what you borrowed your loans for as well. And sometimes even your loan disbursement date. But the beautiful thing about all these plans is that after 20 or 25 years in repayment, your loans are canceled automatically. So you get out from under that debt. Now, one important note is that Parent Plus loans are not eligible for an IDR plan unless they're consolidated into a direct consolidation loan. And then the thing to know is that any direct consolidation loan that contains a Parent Plus loan is only eligible for one plan, the Income Contingent Repayment Plan. This is the least generous IDR plan. So if you borrowed loans for your own education and you also took out a Parent Plus loan for your child's education, you might think about consolidating those loans separately. Because even if you have loans from your own education in that consolidation loan that also contains a Parent Plus loan, that new consolidation loan will only be eligible for the Income Contingent Repayment Plan, or ICR. So you need to be a little bit more strategic if you have a Parent Plus loan and you want to use IDR, an IDR plan, to reduce your payments. You can be enrolled in 2 different IDR plans on different loan types as well.
And it sounds a little bit like a contradictory statement to say you're going to consolidate 2 loans separately, but actually you can go ahead and do that. And this might be one of the instances where that is helpful to you. And one of the reasons why that might be a good idea is because if you have a Parent Plus loan, but another separate loan that you want to take advantage of, the new SAVE plan, which is a much more beneficial IDR plan, though it's not eligible for Parent Plus loans, if you have other loans and you consolidate them separately, those other direct loans would be eligible for the new SAVE plan. And we're going to talk a bit about the new SAVE plan right now, which folks may have heard just yesterday. President Biden announced that the new SAVE plan is official and is up and running. And under the SAVE plan, this is essentially a new type of income-driven repayment plan that will offer much lower monthly payments and shorten the number of years that some borrowers will need to make payments. Now, the other big benefit to the SAVE plan is that it's going to prevent balances from growing while borrowers make payments in the plan, because it will cancel interest that's not covered in your monthly payment. Now, that is big news because one of the reasons why folks do not like signing up for income-driven repayment is they don't like seeing that the interest still accrues and that their balance still grows over the years while they are making payments. Well, under the new SAVE plan, you will not see that happen. And that is, I think, going to be a big deal for borrowers who are wanting to continue with this and save money on their payments going forward, but also don't want to see their balances ballooning out of control over the next several years. So for the SAVE plan, and I think this question came up in the Q&A, so for borrowers who are enrolled in this plan, spousal income won't count if borrowers file their taxes separately from their spouse. Now, that sort of depends on the income-driven repayment plan you're in. Some plans count on the household income, the borrower's income, and the spouse's income, but some plans don't. And under the new SAVE plan, if you file your taxes separately, your spouse's income will not be counted. Under the SAVE plan, more borrowers will also be eligible for a $0 a month payment. Now, a $0 a month payment is something that you can actually get in an IDR plan, and that will still count towards the 20 or 25 years of cancellation. So this is fantastic for borrowers who are really low income and do not have the ability to make regular payments on their loans. If they're eligible for that $0 a month payment, they're still in good standing and they're still actually earning time towards cancellation. So a couple of things to note, as we already said, that Parent Plus loans are not eligible for this new plan. Only direct loans are eligible. And some of these new aspects of this plan are actually not going to get implemented until July of 2024. So you won't see all the benefits of the new SAVE plan happen right away. But we are still encouraging folks to look into this new plan if you're going to consider an IDR plan, because there are a lot of really good benefits here, and you may end up saving a lot of money on your loans. And with the new payment count adjustment, enrolling in an IDR plan now will mean that you can continue to bank time towards cancellation, and you might actually be closer to cancellation than you ever were before because of the payment account adjustment that we're going to talk about in just a minute. So we have an example here from the Department of Education of what the new SAVE plan will actually mean in real dollars for a borrower. So this is a borrower that has an income of $38,000 a year, has a loan balance of $25,000, and an interest rate of 5% on a direct subsidized loan. So on the current repay plan, the borrower was enrolled and was making a monthly payment of $134 a month. But under the new SAVE plan, once the new benefits get implemented in July, the borrower is actually going to be making $43 a month in payments. That's a real savings of almost $100. And this is something that's really exciting, and we are hoping that a lot of borrowers will take advantage of this in the next coming months. So for making your plan for repayment, if you are in an income-driven plan, but you're not really happy with how that is going, or you are really concerned that even that plan, it's still too high for you, you can consider taking advantage of the Department of Education's on-ramp period. So if you have a loan that is held by the Department of Education, the Department of Education has said that they're going to give people a bit of breathing room as repayments begin again in September. And if those folks cannot make payments or miss payments through the end of September of next year, September of 2024, there aren't going to be credit consequences. You're not going to face collections during that first year for those types of loans. But interest is still going to accrue. And the same is true for forbearance or deferment that you may make to try to delay those payments. So you need to just be aware that if you can't make payments, even under an IDR plan, there are still options, but you have to know that interest is still going to accrue on those loans as you're going forward.
Thanks, Hannah. That is a huge safety net for a lot of people, especially folks who were uncertain about what was going to happen with President Biden's cancellation plan, who thought they might be able to get their debt canceled out, and now are realizing that they may be on the hook for additional money that they thought was going to be canceled. Okay, so there might be reasons for you to consolidate your federal family education loans and Perkins loans right now. And one of the big ones is that you might find that you're not eligible for the most generous income-driven repayment plans. So Perkins and HEAL loans are not eligible for IDR plans, and even some FFEL loans are not eligible for IDR plans, and they're not as generous as the current SAVE plan. And so it might be in your best interest to consolidate so that you have a better monthly repayment amount. In addition, if your loans aren't held by the Department of Education, they're not going to be eligible for the Department of Education's one-time payment count adjustment. And we're going to walk through what is eligible, what isn't eligible, what's going to be recounted under this one-time payment count adjustment. But briefly, right now, this payment count adjustment gets you closer to cancellation under the IDR plans, even if you've never been enrolled in an IDR plan in the past. There is a deadline at play here. So you should consider consolidating your loans into a direct consolidation loan before December 31st of this year so that you can maximize what prior time and repayment will count towards IDR cancellation under the payment count adjustment, even if you've never enrolled in an IDR plan. If you don't consolidate those loan types by that date, then those loans will be excluded from this payment count adjustment, meaning they won't be closer to cancellation under the IDR plans. So that's a pretty big deal. And again, we're going to talk through this in more depth in just a second. So another really important opportunity that we're going to talk about a lot more in 2 weeks, also with AARP during another webinar, is the Fresh Start program. And what the Fresh Start program does is it enables folks who had their loans in default before the payment pause began. It allows them to get out of default relatively easily. It takes the record of default off their credit report. It makes them eligible for additional federal student aid if they want to return to school and other forms of federal loans. So this is a pretty big deal. If you can't make it to our webinar in 2 weeks where we'll be talking about this in a lot of depth, you should know that requesting a fresh start is fast and easy, and it makes you eligible for IDR plans and other relief options as well. You can ask for a fresh start online by logging into myeddebt.ed.gov or via phone by calling this phone number.
So I think our last tip that we wanted folks to be aware of is to just avoid scammers and refinancing schemes at this point in time. So obviously, scammers are going to take advantage of all the confusion there is around the student loan system right now. So be just really hyper aware of anyone who's calling you or any radio ads you hear, Facebook ads you may see that promise easy, quick student loan forgiveness, student loan grants, Biden loan cancellation. Those should be big red flags. Also, you should never pay anyone to help you apply for one of these programs or enroll in an IDR plan. That's all completely free. And servicers actually are supposed to help you with some of that completely free as well. So if you are talking to someone who's going to charge you for that, that might be a red flag that it's a scam. You also want to make sure you're not refinancing your loans right now. If you refinance your federal student loans with a private company, you lose all of the protections that you have under the federal student loan system, including income-driven repayment plans, deferments and forbearances, benefits if you are in default, and collection pauses. You lose all of that. You also lose your eligibility for any existing cancellation or future cancellation programs. So we actually got contacted a lot over the last year or so by people who had refinanced private student loans and wanted to apply for Biden's student loan cancellation program, but they couldn't because they now had private student loans and weren't eligible. So please don't take that step without knowing that there are going to be huge downsides if you do that.
That's true too. Sometimes we speak with borrowers who attended schools that defrauded them, and then they refinance because they thought it would make things easier, and then they're underwater on that private student loan. They want to apply for a borrower defense discharge, and they are not eligible as well. So this can come up in so many different contexts, and you have a lot more protection on your loan repayment options, cancellation options, etc., on federal loans versus private loans. So let's talk about the next big thing, which is we're going to dive into this one-time account adjustment, because you all probably saw news about the 800,000 borrowers who got automatic loan cancellation just recently. And you might have been asking yourself, well, what is this? Because I heard that President Biden's plan didn't go, the Supreme Court struck it down. How did this happen? And this is the first wave of President Biden's one-time account adjustment. So, and it's ongoing. And so you might still get relief through this plan in the next month, in the coming months. So let's talk about what it is, who's eligible, and what it means for your student loan account. So borrowers with any loans held by the Department of Education will now get credit for all time in repayment, that counts time that was delinquent, and even some time in deferment and forbearance towards IDR cancellation. This is true even if you've never enrolled in an IDR plan, and you'll get credit for the qualifying time on loans that were consolidated into a new consolidation loan. So the prior regulation said that if you consolidated, the clock would reset. Well, under the one-time payment count adjustment, the clock does not reset, and you still get credit for the time on those loans before they were consolidated. This is huge. Now, sounds like a lot of stuff counts. However, a couple of really important things don't count. So time in default does not count under the one-time payment count adjustment. Time in an in-school deferment or in a post-school 6-month grace period also will not count under this payment count adjustment. However, all of this additional time that now counts towards IDR cancellation puts a lot of people a lot closer to cancellation. And again, those 800,000 people that got cancellation, that's just the first wave. We will continue seeing more people reach cancellation in the coming months, and then everybody's accounts are going to be adjusted in 2024, and they will bank that time moving forward. So even if they're not at cancellation now, if they take those steps moving forward, they'll still get there. Now, who reaches cancellation when, we've also got to dive into. So if you are currently enrolled in an IDR plan, that IDR plan governs. And like we talked about before, the amount of time to cancellation varies by which plan you're in. But if you weren't enrolled in an IDR plan, then it's 20 years of repayment if you only borrowed loans for your undergraduate education. It's 25 years of repayment if you borrowed any loans for your graduate education. And it's 25 years for Parent Plus loans. The other piece to know is that you can consolidate if you attended school at different periods of time, or you have if you attended school at different periods of time, so your loans have been in repayment for different periods of time, you might want to consolidate them, because otherwise they're reaching that cancellation point at different times. You reach cancellation on each loan, not your entire account. You have to consolidate those loans so that they get back credit for the oldest loan. Now, for most folks, you will get credit automatically, and you will see your account being adjusted over the next year. However, like we talked about before, some loan types are excluded from the one-time payment count adjustment, and you're going to have to consolidate these loans before December 31st of this year to make sure that the loans benefit from the payment count adjustment. And if you haven't reached cancellation yet, you will need to enroll in an IDR plan moving forward to earn enough credit towards cancellation. I also want to bring a highlight to Parent Plus borrowers, because they are treated a little bit differently under the one-time payment count adjustment, and they also can get public service loan forgiveness benefits as well under the one-time payment count adjustment. So Parent Plus loans will receive credit towards IDR cancellation under the payment count adjustment, even if they haven't yet been consolidated. But to keep earning credit towards IDR loan forgiveness, you may need to consolidate your Parent Plus loans into a new direct consolidation loan and then sign up for income contingent repayment, the ICR plan. And like we talked about before, Parent Plus loans are not eligible for IDR plans unless they're consolidated. And when they're consolidated, that new direct consolidation loan that contains a Parent Plus loan will only be eligible for ICR, which is the least generous plan. Now, direct Parent Plus loans are eligible for public service loan forgiveness. Bell Parent Plus loans are not. But it's tough to get to those 10 years if you're not in an IDR plan, because the standard repayment plan, which is the automatic plan for all student loan borrowers, sets you to pay off your loan within 10 years. And so it's harder for Parent Plus borrowers to get there unless they consolidate and then enroll in the ICR plan. So you may be eligible for public service loan forgiveness now if you've accrued 10 years of qualifying employment time and you've been in repayment for 10 years. You might be able to apply for public service loan forgiveness now. This is contrary to what a lot of folks have been told by their servicers in the past, and this is a limited benefit. This will only be true as long as the one-time payment count adjustment is happening. We have more information about this interaction between the one-time payment count adjustment or the IDR count adjustment on our website at studentloanborrowerassistance.org.
So it's a lot of information we went over today, and I know there are a lot of questions in the Q&A. So I want to wrap up really quickly so folks can just leave with some key takeaways before we do our quick set of questions and turn it over to Savvy. So first of all, the key takeaways regarding cancellation. So President Biden's plan to provide cancellation was struck down by the Supreme Court, but the Department of Ed is working on a new cancellation plan, but it's going to take a long time for that to come out. We don't know what it looks like, and unfortunately, it's not something that folks should be counting on for any time soon, and they really should take steps to just get ready for repayment now. You can see if you are eligible for any of the existing current cancellation programs that we've discussed today. And also the IDR account adjustment, the payment count adjustment that Kira just went over, is going to get millions of people closer to cancellation than they ever were before. And some people may actually be eligible for cancellation now or in the next few months or years. So that is one of the biggest things we want to leave you with regarding cancellation. In terms of returning to repayment, what we want folks to make sure that they are aware of is that they are logging into studentaid.gov, updating their contact info there and on their loan servicers accounts, and then that they are reviewing their loan balance, the types of loans they have, who the loan servicer and the loan holders are, while also looking into whether or not they should be applying for an IDR plan, considering whether or not they want to compare the potential plans that they are eligible for, and applying to consolidate loans. That's all stuff that you can do on studentaid.gov. And these are things that we want you to actually do to get ready for repayment. So we've talked about seeing if you're eligible for cancellation, thinking about a repayment plan that works best for you. And one of the questions we got was, is there a comparison tool that we can use to try to figure that out? Yes, the Department of Education actually has a loan simulator tool that will help you figure that out. And I think that's the folks at Savvy are actually going to talk a little bit about this as well. Make sure that you are consolidating your loans if that is the right step for you. And if you want to take advantage of the payment count adjustment, do that by December 31st, 2023. So do that before the end of this year to make sure you get the credit for that time. And then finally, if your loans are in default, make sure that you sign up for a fresh start by the end of September of 2024. We'll talk about that more in the next few weeks. If you're like, this is way too much information, I just don't know what to do, and you want to go to a site that has sort of answers to all of this, please visit our website, studentloanborrowerassistance.org. It's organized really neatly by topics, and you can also search for certain topics if you need just quick information and you don't know where to find it. That is sort of our presentation for today. I do want to open it up for questions. We've got several in the chat. I think we only have about 3 or 5 minutes for questions before we turn it over to Lindsay. So Kira, I'm just going to go through and flag the sort of big ones. First of all, there's a lot of questions about Parent Plus loans. So just to be clear on Parent Plus loans, those are your loans. So if you took out a Parent Plus loan to help pay for your child's education, that is not the child's loan. That is your loan. And that is something that you are, unfortunately, under the eyes of the federal government, is your responsibility to pay back. The department will not go after the child to collect on that loan. Now, the benefits is that with the Parent Plus loan, you're also eligible for the same number of cancellation programs for the most part that the student would be. So total and permanent disability discharge, death discharge, if the parent passes away, if the child passes away, there could be some cancellation options that are available to you there, even if you have a Parent Plus loan. We had some questions, Kira, about what happens when someone consolidates their Parent Plus loan with their other loans based on bad advice that they received, if there's any way to sort of unwind that.
Unfortunately, there is not. You have that new consolidation loan. After you consolidate a loan, there's a short period of time where you can say, no, I don't want to consolidate this loan. But if you're beyond, I mean, I believe it's a short period of time. It's only a matter of days. And so unfortunately, you are stuck.
Thank you, Kira. And then we had a couple of just clarifying questions about the new IDR plan, the SAVE plan. So the SAVE plan is up and running. However, not all benefits of the SAVE plan are going to go into effect until July. So you can apply for the SAVE plan right now. Also, if you're on the repay plan is going away, and that will automatically become the SAVE plan. So you won't need to do anything to enroll in the SAVE plan if you're already enrolled in repay. Most of the major benefits that we're going to see from the SAVE plan, like the lowered monthly payment amount that folks are going to have to pay, and the interest benefit, those are not going to go into effect until July. But the other benefits, which are mentioned on the slide that we laid out earlier, those are going to go into effect in September. So it is a good idea, if that's the best plan for you, to go ahead and enroll in that now, because once July comes, all of that stuff is going to happen automatically, and you're going to start to see those new benefits being applied without ever having to change anything or do anything on your own. So there's really no downsides to applying for Save Now if that is the best plan for you going forward. Anything else to add there, Kira?
No, that I think that's accurate. I know it's confusing that aspects of the plan are being early implemented, and then other aspects of the plan will be fully implemented later. Like I said before, it's like sitting at a board game where you don't totally know all the rules all the time, and where there are very specific and detailed rules. But there is more information about all of this on our website and on studentaid.gov.
And if you don't know what IDR plan you were enrolled in before the pandemic payment pause went into effect, you can check that out on your studentaid.gov account. But also, if you have a loan servicer account, you can see what your payment was before you went into the payment pause to figure that out as well. You can also call your loan servicer, and they should have this information and will tell you what your estimated plan, your payment is going to be under your current plan in September when you first get your bill. If you have a problem with how they're calculating that, that's when you really need to look into a new IDR plan potentially, or another plan for you.
And then we also got a question about the HEAL loans that I mentioned before. I am sorry, this is an older type of loan. Very few people have it. We covered the main types of loans that people will have. That is not the name of an IDR plan. It is just a loan type that some people will have. There are multiple types of IDR plans: the income-based repayment plan, or IBR, the ICR, income contingent repayment plan, pay as you earn, PAYE, pay plan is another plan. And now we have the SAVE plan, which replaces the repay plan. Those are the most common IDR plans, and you'll find more information about those on our website and on studentaid.gov.
So I think we have time for just two quick more questions. We've got a question here about cosigner. So if you are the cosigner on a loan, that is likely means that you have a private loan and not a federal student loan. Generally, the federal student loan system, there are not cosigners. So unless you took out a Parent Plus loan to pay for your child's education, it's likely that your cosigned loan was a private loan, which means it's not going to be eligible for these types of programs that we discussed today. But you can contact the loan servicer to see if there are any other programs, because some loan servicers, even on private student loans, will offer disability cancellation or death discharge. So it is worth still looking into to see if you have options there. I think then the last thing I just want to address is, how will you know if your loans are canceled? I'm guessing this is related to the payment count adjustment. Well, the Department of Education is working on prioritizing people who are eligible for cancellation now. So they are going to get notice first, which is why those 800,000 borrowers got told, just a few weeks ago that they were having their loans canceled, because they were the folks who already were at cancellation based on the program. So they've been paying for more than 20, 25 years on their loans. But if you are taking steps to get eligible for that now, and you think you're close to cancellation, the Department of Education will notify you soon. It's going to take them at least a year or so to work through this whole payment count adjustment. So just make sure that you are paying attention. And if you have questions or complaints about it, you can contact the Student Aid Ombudsman's office and file a complaint if you think you should be eligible for cancellation, but you haven't received that yet. So I think that's all the time we have for questions. I think I want to turn it over to Lindsay at Savvy, and then if there's time at the end, we'd be happy to stay on.
Great. Thank you so much, you guys. And I know that was a lot of information, but I couldn't think of two better experts or advocates than Kira, than Anna to help explain that to you all. My name is Lindsay Clark, and I'm the Chief Borrower Advocate here at Savvy. And we work with the AARP Foundation to help borrowers, not only better understand their student loan debt, but to navigate successfully from start to finish, around a lot of these programs. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. Okay, so just a bit about Savvy before I go any further, because some of you might not be as familiar with us. We are a social impact technology startup based in Washington, D.C., and we were founded by student loan experts and advocates who had been fighting on behalf of the borrower for almost a decade. And in 2017, this was the first year that borrowers could start applying for a forgiveness program called Public Service Loan Forgiveness. And over 100,000 borrowers applied and 99% were rejected. And our co-founders saw this and decided to do something about it. So they developed Savvy as a technology platform and a service to help borrowers like you and like myself. I have a little over $200,000 in student loan debt. So if that makes any of you feel better about your own situation, then mission accomplished right off the bat. But to help borrowers like us not only better understand our student loans, but again, to navigate successfully from start to finish around some of these complicated and overwhelming programs, like public service loan forgiveness or income-driven repayment. But along the way, our goal is to make the experience of being a student loan borrower better. And we try to do that by identifying as much additional savings as possible, again, through things like income-driven repayment plans that Kira and Anna talked about. We're a registered public benefit corporation, which means it exists in our mission and charter to serve the public benefit. And that's exactly why we do things like this here today. We also host numbers of educational workshops and webinars almost on a daily basis for our various communities of borrowers across the country, because we firmly believe that when borrowers are better educated and more informed about their debt, they're more empowered as consumers. Now, just to clarify, Savvy is not a servicer that Anna and Kira talked about. You can kind of think of us more like an intermediary or an advocate on your behalf. Our goal is really to reduce the friction between you and your servicer. So we might help to submit an application on your behalf or get on the phone with you and your servicer to resolve an issue, but we're never going to replace the role of that servicer. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. So what exactly does that look like? And what exactly does Savvy do? Really, it's supposed to be an easier way to manage your student loans. We simplify and digitize the entire process from start to finish to help show you what you're eligible for and then help you enroll in these various programs. Through the Savvy tool that I'm about to show you, you're able to complete one application of information, see your best options around repayment and forgiveness, and then we help enroll and cover all of the rest. We also monitor for new programs and policy changes. I know there's a lot going on and it's often tough to follow along in the news, and we're going to alert you for anything that you should be aware of. We also, again, take care of all of the paperwork and applications around these programs. And oftentimes that can be a hurdle that many borrowers are not able to overcome. They might get rejected from a program and might be unsure as to why and are never able to really reach that finish line. And then last but not least, we provide personalized one-on-one support for student loan borrowers. And as a borrower myself, I know that this is really compelling. Oftentimes, I might call my servicer and feel like I'm getting a different answer every time, depending upon who I'm talking to. And with Savvy, you have a dedicated agent who's an expert who's going to help you along throughout that process. And on average, Savvy users are able to lower their monthly payment through income-driven repayment plans by about $150 a month and receive forgiveness of around $20,000. So I'm really excited to sort of show you how you can utilize this tool to enroll in a lot of the programs that Kira and Anna talked about. And I'm going to take you through some of those steps right now. So when you first log into your Savvy account, and we're going to share a link on how to access that in the chat, you're going to see your Savvy dashboard. And this is sort of like mission control for everything Savvy. It's where you're going to be able to do a lot of different things and track your student loan progress. For example, it's where you can invite your friends and family to benefit from Savvy as well. So you can click invite friends and family, put in their email addresses, and everyone in your community will be able to benefit from this tool as well. Now, when you're ready to get started with the process, again, it's fairly simple. It's basically going to ask you some questions around your family size, your tax filing information, your income, right? This is going to help us identify where you might be eligible as far as income-driven repayment plans goes, and your employment. This is helpful for us to determine whether you might be eligible for any employment-based forgiveness programs, like a public service loan forgiveness or teacher loan forgiveness. We have a database of all of those employers in our tool. So when you start typing in the employer name, it will pop down from that drop-down menu and you'll be able to select it. Now, if you are currently retired or unemployed, you can enter NA in the employer box and proceed to the next question. So if you're not currently employed, you don't have to worry about that. The last step in the process is syncing your student loans. We provide a loan sync through a technology called Plaid. It is a best-in-class, high-security technology that allows you to select your loan servicer, let's say Navient in this case, enter in your Navient username and password credentials, and it's going to sync over a read-only snapshot of that information. So it's not giving us access or anything like that, but it will allow us to see what loan type you have, what your balance is, your disbursement date, right? Kira and Anna talked about how that disbursement date is important in terms of determining that loan type, and your interest rate. These are all going to help us refine the estimate that we're going to be able to give you around what your best options are. After you have synced those loans, you'll reach the final step. And this is sort of the plan options page where we're going to show you what your best options are around repayment and potentially forgiveness. And as you can see here, the new save plan has already been incorporated into the tool. So you'll be able to see what your options would be on that new income-driven repayment plan. So you can see what that new monthly payment would be, what that total payment over time would be, how long potentially until you'd be eligible for forgiveness down to the year and month, and exactly how much forgiveness you'd be eligible to receive. You might see a couple of different plan options there depending upon your eligibility. So we present you with all the information that you need to make an informed decision. Now, from there, you have the opportunity to either submit these applications on your own through what we call our DIY, or you can upgrade to our essential service. And thankfully, the AARP Foundation is working with Savvy to provide older adults with limited income this essential service absolutely for free. So you get this trusted tool to help manage your student loan debt at zero cost, all right? And so you can get started by clicking that essential plan today. Through that essential plan, we are going to take care of all of the application process for you. On the right-hand side here, you can see what it looks like to have that fully digitized application. It's as easy as electronically signing, and then we submit to your servicer on your behalf. On the left-hand side here is an example of someone who is trying to submit for public service loan forgiveness and is able to initiate those forms with a click of a button. We actually send it to their employer for them, collect their signatures, and again, submit to Mohila, the servicer in charge of the public service loan forgiveness program, on their behalf. And then once submitted, we're going to help track and monitor those applications with and for you. You know, one of the biggest frustrations I find as a borrower and when talking to borrowers is the lack of visibility that you have into what's going on with your servicer. You might submit an application, not hear anything for a month or so and wonder, did they get it? Where am I? What's going on? And so Savvy helps to really track that process for you. And if it's taking too long, we are able to flag that and follow up with your servicer with you and on your behalf to make sure, again, that you are crossing the finish line and getting enrolled in the programs that you should be. So on the left-hand side here, you can see someone with a couple of different applications, both for income-driven repayment and public service loan forgiveness. And on the right-hand side, we zoom into exactly where they are in that process, what we might still need from them, where they are, expected time for the servicer to review their applications, so that you have sort of peace of mind as you're going through this process. We know there's a lot of anxiety when it comes to student loan debt and what that can be like on a day-to-day, month-to-month basis. And so we really hope to help you feel more peace of mind as you're going through this process. And then last but not least, our amazing customer support team. We have a internal team of experts that work with our borrowers one-on-one. And so you can send them a message through your Savvy account. We have a telephone number that you can call to access that support as well. And we have a great interactive help center where you can access resources and guides that can answer a lot of your questions. So with that being said, a few next steps. You can go to aarpfoundation.org//student loan help. And we'll put that link in the chat as well for anyone that needs it. Or you can send us a message through your Savvy account or give us a call at the number you see listed on that screen. And I'll read it out loud. That is 833-382-3175. And that's available weekdays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern. All right, so we hope that this is going to be a helpful resource in addition to all the information that you've learned here today to be able to help guide you through this process and make sure that you can transition back into repayment as smoothly as possible. So with that, I will turn it back over to the AARP Foundation team or NCLC team and see if we have any last questions we might be able to answer.
Yeah, I think there's a question for Savvy about the cost and the income level. So Lindsay, if you want to answer that question, that'd be great.
Yeah, I actually, Hannah, I might ask you, I'm not sure about the income level as far as the cost or if to make that free. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but when you go through the Savvy tool and enter in your income, it should tell you automatically if you are eligible for that. But the AARP Foundation team might be able to clarify for me.
Great.
And I think Hannah's typing.
Yeah, it looks like Hannah's typing. So I know this is a lot of information for folks to receive. And, I think the big thing that we want to make sure that folks are aware of is that there are options for dealing with your student loan debt right now and for managing your repayment to make it easier as we start. All of us who have student loans start making payments again in October. This new payment count adjustment is really a big deal, and you can start banking time now towards cancellation. But if you're not yet at the 20 to 25 years of cancellation, just remember you'll need to enroll in an IDR plan in order to continue banking that time going forward. So if you've been making payments on your student loans for 15 years or 18 years, make sure that if you want to try to get your loans canceled in 20 or 25 years of total repayment, that you enroll in an IDR plan if that works for you before September starts, so that you can continue earning that credit toward cancellation. Kira, are there any other final thoughts that you want to leave folks with now?
No, Anna, that is great. We've covered a lot of ground really fast here. And so I really hope that everyone looks at studentaid.gov and at our website, studentloanborrowerassistance.org, to get a fuller view and to perhaps walk through some of this a little bit more slowly, because there is so much happening and there's so much opportunity at play. But you have to know how your own account fits into the opportunities that are available. And so I put our blog post about the payment count adjustment in the blog, so you can review that as well. There was also a question in the chat about public service loan forgiveness eligibility if you're currently retired. Unfortunately, you do have to be currently employed in public service employment when you apply for PSLF cancellation. But we also posted the blog about that interaction between the payment count adjustment and public service loan forgiveness in the Q&A as well. So there's a lot of resources. We really hope that this was helpful for you today. And it was just a pleasure to talk with all of you.
Yeah, and remember that office hours are available for folks who need additional like individual help, and you can sign up in the link in the chat. So make sure you're signing up for that. Office hours are Tuesday, August 29th from 12 to 1. And I believe that is with Savvy if you have questions about what to do next in your student loans. And then, yeah, this is not the last time you'll hear from us. We are coming back again in 2 weeks to talk about the Fresh Start program and the payment count adjustment a bit more. So stay tuned for more news regarding student loans from NCLC, Savvy, and the AARP Foundation. Thank you, everyone.